It's no secret that trapping is an essential skill set to have to try to feed yourself in any kind of emergency situation, but sometimes you don't have access to rocks, and that's something we have to deal with here in North Florida. And so I want to share a cool little trap, no rocks needed, and it's an efficient deadfall that you can scale up, so stay tuned. Joel here from American Survival Co., and this is going to be a video on the McPherson Deadfall. Now, John and Geri McPherson are some of the people that, you know, as I was first exploring this topic of interest, you know, I still to this day think they have some of the best information out there, especially when it comes to primitive skills, and this is actually one of their trap sets, and it's one of those things until you kind of explore trapping in general, you don't really catch the brilliance of it until you know, you understand all the little subtleties. But one of the reasons I really like this trap is we have a lack of rocks here in North Florida. It's sometimes difficult to make, you know, wood only deadfalls that are sensitive enough and heavy enough to dispatch, especially our smaller critters like chipmunk, squirrels, and things like that. Now, this particular trap set is actually very simple to construct. It's also very sensitive, and I just think it's pretty neat. It's a great idea. Not my original idea. Like I said, this comes from John and Geri McPherson. One of my mentors, Joshua Hamlin, trained under John and Geri McPherson back in the day, and I'm all about paying it forward. You know, we're not just born with this information. Somebody's got to share it, and those are the people that this comes from. Let me take you in a little bit closer and we'll take a look at the trigger system. So before we go and set this trap, I want to give you a close-up of kind of the frame system that we have set up. Now, this is designed to be a baited set, but even where we place this, we made this a few weekends back in one of our deadfall workshops. You can actually see there's an animal trail going through this tall stuff, and we just kind of we're talking about things, and that's why we picked this spot. But originally this is meant to be a baited set, but all you can see is we just have two bipods that we hammered into the ground, and we put a cross stick to support it. We were exploring using the least amount of cordage possible to get this done, and we basically just put a constrictor knot around all three pieces. Same over here, but you just need to make a little frame. And then another little detail is we have an anvil effect going on here. We have a piece of wood that we actually kind of dug into the ground so it would stay put. But let's set this up and I'll show you the trigger system. So here we have the trap triggered. It's not completely how I would leave it, but I want to take a look at some of the closer details here. So this top piece of wood just has a loop of line coming up from it to our trigger stick. That trigger stick is pushing up against this crossbar that's supported by one of the legs of our bipods. Right? And here's what's unique about this. We have another cross member that's actually the triggering mechanism, but it's tied from this top bar down to this bottom bar, where that is what the animal steps on and sets off the trap. Now, if we made this stick long enough to just go all the way down here, like in a typical setup that you'd see this kind of trigger, it's just not sensitive enough. There's too much leverage. So this little adaptation makes it a more viable trap, in my opinion, because it's more sensitive. So some finer detail, you know, I can make this even more sensitive by where I place my string on here. And I've carved this up and made it nice and smooth and slick. So I go to set this piece. If I have it way up here, there's going to be a lot more friction and it's going to take a lot more force to trigger this. But if I set it I want it really sensitive, I'll come way down here to where it's barely holding it there. And that's going to give me, you know, a more sensitive trap. So, you know, we want to clear all this out and make this, you know, cleaner looking. But just so you can understand what triggers this trap, it's this bottom bar, right? The animal steps on this, and that's what releases the top log, smashes them against this bottom log for an anvil effect. But it's a very light trigger. So just to give you some more detail, we're going to set this again. You'll see how quick it is. Here's my trigger stick. Close up of it, I have a nice rounded off end here and a nice thin point on the other end. But that simply comes up here. And if I were to leave it like this, it's not going to be nearly as sensitive as, you know, coming almost off the stick, like something like that. But for safety, especially if you have this scaled up, you know, maybe something like coyote sized, you can have it set up something like this where you don't adjust it for maximum sensitivity just yet until everything's up there, ready to go. So typically, if I'm looking for more sensitivity, it's going to look something like this, like almost barely set there. I'll take this, get that close to coming off. Slowly release the tension, and the trap is armed. Another little detail that's nice to think about, depending on how much effort and time you want to put into something like this, is we can increase basically the surface area of our trigger stick by basically making like a little pedal. Alright, and I have this set really sensitive right now, so I'm not gonna continue it unless I adjust that sensitivity, which I will do. So here you can see now we have a bigger surface area where if they step anywhere on this little pedal, so to speak, you know, it triggers the trap. But just to show you again how sensitive this is just a little stick. I can't get much pressure before, you know, it just starts bending. Nice and sensitive, stable. It's going to stay set, and it's sensitive enough that if a little squirrel were to step on that pedal, you know. One more time, just for clarity, from a different angle. Here, it's just a loop of line. I've just tied a loop of line that comes around our top piece of our deadfall. This is what goes around this trigger stick that's causing this to want to flip up. We got our two pieces that are our two crossbars that are tied together right here. That's going to want to pin this top one. Up against our bipod, and she's set again. Well guys, that about wraps it up for this video. Thanks for watching. I hope you got something out of it. If you're interested in learning really cool stuff like this in person, come check out a class. We have all kinds of different classes with different price points. You just want to learn deadfalls, we got, you know, just something you can come out for a couple hours on the weekend and come hone your skills. And we have full-fledged weekend courses and things like that. Check out AmericanSurvivalCo.com for more information. And again, pay it forward. This is a John McPherson trap, and it's very clever. You typically see that same trigger system in a twitch up, but to, you know, engineer it so that it's a deadfall is very smart.